Hey, thanks, Tony, and good afternoon, everyone. As Tony mentioned, my name is Chris Batsavage. With the North Carolina Division of Marine Fisheries. Been there about 26 years, various roles from field technician, biologist, and management. But main role now, for the last 12 years at least, has been to serve as the director's proxy on the Mid-Atlantic Fishery Management Council and ASMFC. So I get to hang out at the management board table about 4 times a year with Dave, Nicola, and Mike on various ASMFC issues. But anyways, let's kind of roll right into it. So I'll be talking about what's the fisheries in North Carolina for false albacore, as well as management. Just an overview of what I'll cover today. I'll basically give a little overview of the false albacore fisheries in the state. Some false albacore management history, or probably really lack thereof. I'll go into some detail on the proposed rule for false albacore by the Marine Fisheries Commission and the potential management that could come out of that, as well as the next steps in the false albacore rulemaking process in the state. And then I'll just kind of sum it all up at the end. So, as I think most of you know, false albacore is a popular recreational fishery in North Carolina, especially over the last 30 years or so. I suspect some of you probably have participated in that fishery. It's largely a catch and release fishery. It does have a harvest aspect to it, probably mostly for bait use in other fisheries. The graph here shows rec harvest in numbers of fish and numbers of recreational trips for false albacore. And as you can see, just with the different shaded bars, that we do have rec harvest in both state and federal waters. There's been a generally an increasing trend in landings and trips since 2012, with peak harvest and trips in 2020. And was that a COVID effect with more people out fishing during the week? Was it higher availability of false albacore? And kind of based on my recollection of being out on the water and talking to people at that time, I think it was definitely a little bit of both. So this graph shows the number of released fish in the North Carolina recreational fishery, both in state and federal waters. Kind of a variable but generally increasing trend in releases since 2013, with most releases occurring in state waters in recent years. The numbers of released fish, if I go back and show you kind of the scale, the graphs on the y-axis, the numbers are greater than the harvest. But that's expected based on the popularity of the catch and release fishery, and it's not a widely popular food fish, of course, compared to other species targeted by the rec community. So the commercial fishery in North Carolina is mostly incidental catch, targeting other species such as king mackerel, Spanish mackerel, tuna, bluefish, things like that. There's both bait and food markets, with the small-scale commercial fishery targeting false albacore for food markets, more so than other years, but in more recent years than previous years. The graph on the screen shows landings in state and federal waters and the number of trips commercially landing false albacore. And like the recreational fishery, we see landings in both state and federal waters. A general increase in landings since about 2014 or 2013, but no discernible trend in number of trips. The commercial landings are equal to or greater than the rec harvest until about 2014, where rec harvest has been higher than commercial since then. So this table is showing just the number and percent of commercial trips landing false albacore in weight bins by gear. Gill nets and hook and line account for nearly all the false albacore landings in the state. And Anything else is truly incidental and probably at the level of just being confidential data. But I mean, suffice to say, it's almost 100% gillnet and hook and line commercial fisheries. You'll see quickly, just from the top right, that about 75% of the commercial trips land 100 pounds or less of false albacore. And this really highlights the incidental catch component of this fishery. However, a small percentage of trips do land over 500 pounds of false albacore, with some trips landing as high as 4,000 pounds, which of course is the more directed fishery that occurs in North Carolina. So the two figures on this slide show the size of the false albacore harvested by recreational and commercial fisheries. We have fork length in inches on the y-axis, and the size of the bubbles on the plot represent the proportion of fish at size. The size composition of false albacore has remained stable for the past 25 years, with an average length of 23 inches for both sectors. Additionally, most of the fish caught are well above the length of 50% maturity of 13.6 inches that's reported in the literature, and that's represented by the horizontal black line in the figures. So move on to management. Until 2011, false albacore was part of the South Atlantic Fishery Management Council's Coastal Migratory Pelagics FMP. Although there were no management measures under that plan, data collection was an important component. But when that was dropped in 2011 by the South Atlantic Council, North Carolina lost its rulemaking authority for false albacore under our rule for compliance with interjurisdictional FMPs. The South Atlantic Council reconsidered management of false albacore recently, but decided to monitor the fishery through fishery performance reports instead. False albacore was also considered for management by the Mid-Atlantic Fishery Management Council when they were working on their forage amendment. But false albacore didn't meet the definition of forage that the Council's Science and Statistical Committee established for that plan, so it wasn't included for management there. The ASMSC Policy Board considered management for false albacore in Atlantic Bonita last year, but most states were not interested in that. I think Dave Borden will probably talk a little more about some things that have come out of that since. And then finally, one of the main things I'll be talking about today is the North Carolina Marine Fisheries Commission requested rulemaking language for false albacore for state waters management last year. So this slide basically gives a summary of the proposed rule for false albacore that the Marine Fisheries Commission voted for at their February 2024 business meeting. The rule allows for the Division of Marine Fisheries Director in North Carolina to issue a proclamation that sets false albacore regulations if the combined commercial and rec landings exceed 200% of the average landings from 2018 to 2022, and the Marine Fisheries Commission concurs with issuing the proclamation. The intent is to allow for some growth in the fisheries, but to prevent large-scale expansion. The rule gives the Marine Fisheries Commission the option to consider other factors that may be influencing the increase in landings to the extent that the threshold was exceeded. Things such as anomalous harvest estimates or a steady increase in landings, et cetera, things like that. Now, the regulations that come out of this proposed rule will be limited to trip, bag, and vessel limits. So size limits, season limits, gear restrictions, those kinds of things would not be implemented. And so part of that is under the trip limits and boat limits and things. The commercial trip limits could be set up to 3,500 pounds per trip, a recreational bag limit of up to 10 fish per person, and a recreational vessel limit of up to 30 fish. And if the trigger is tripped and regs are set, they're set for both sectors, not just one. The regulations would expire if the annual landings fall below the threshold and the North Carolina Marine Fisheries Commission concurs with the regs expiring. This concurrence from the Marine Fisheries Commission for implementing and expiring the regulations allows for reviewing the landings first and to avoid what we call yo-yo management. So if the So if the landings were kind of oscillating above and below the 200% threshold, we're not in a situation where we have regs in place for a year or two and then they go away and then they come back, so on and so forth. The commission can kind of consider the trends before deciding to expire regs, or look at what caused the landings to exceed the threshold in the first place. So this rulemaking language is unique compared to other North Carolina fisheries rules, but it also addresses concerns raised about the limited false albacore data to base management decisions, although that's being collected at a pretty fast clip right now, as well as the need for management just at the state level, for a fish that moves around in the ocean a lot. So this graph shows basically the combined the commercial and rec landings in North Carolina since 2013 compared to the average landings from 2018 to 2022, and that average is that solid black line. And then above that is the 200% threshold, which is the dash line, and that's how we're going to base whether regulations are implemented or not under this proposed rule. And as you can see, the landings haven't exceeded the 200% threshold. However, they did come close in 2020. So I'm going to move on to next steps. And this table basically kind of goes through what those next steps are in the rulemaking process. And I'll just preface that as this is the standard rulemaking process in North Carolina. It's not specific to false albacore. It's just this goes for any rulemaking that we have. So as I mentioned, it's a proposed rule. So as you can see, there's still several steps it has to pass before it can become a final rule. The next important step is the Marine Fisheries Commission voting on the approval of notice of text for rulemaking at their August 2024 business meeting. If the Marine Fisheries Commission does not vote in favor of notice of text for rulemaking, then the false albacore rulemaking process ends, so there wouldn't be a rule in place. The same goes if the Marine Fisheries Commission, when the Marine Fisheries Commission is voting on approval of the permanent rule at their February 2025 business meeting. And the rule must also be approved by the Rules Review Commission next April. So if the rule is passed by the Marine Fisheries Commission and gets a favorable review by the Rules Review Commission, then it could be in effect as early as May 1st of next year. However, if the rule receives 10 letters of objection by the public, then it would undergo legislative review in 2026 before it could be in effect. So just to summarize, false albacore is an important commercial and recreational fishery in North Carolina with increasing trends in landings, releases, and trips. There's been, of course, concern over the lack of coastwide management raised, which I think prompted the rulemaking, at least in North Carolina. The proposed rules that are set forth in North Carolina are basically guardrail management, in case the fishery continues to grow, and can serve as a basis for future state and regional management. However, there's still more steps to take for the rule to be on the books. So that sums things up. Again, I didn't do this at the beginning, but definitely to give credit to staff, McLean Seward and Catherine Bloom, who put a lot of the graphs together that I was able to pull from some of the earlier presentations. So I didn't come up with all this stuff myself. But anyways, my contact information is up on the screen if anyone has questions for me now or want to reach out to me later about any questions or want more information. So thanks, everyone.